everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Supply Chaney Podcast, where we talk to the experts in supply chain from planning and procurement, manufacturing, transportation, warehousing, and all of the little bits and pieces that make all that stick. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the experience and the expertise of Andrei, who is the founder and the CEO of Dexory. And I'm really looking forward to talking a little about visibility in the warehouse. We talk about visibility and supply chain as a really key. I think that maybe that was the key word or the word of the decade, the last little bit. And I think that they've got a really unique approach to accomplishing that within the four walls of warehouses. And if you've been to any trade shows in the last few years and you've seen this really, really tall robot out there on the floor somewhere, that was Dexory. So really excited to kind of learn a little bit more about the background and the history and just kind of the nuts and bolts of the business. So Andrei, without further ado, can I hand the digital microphone over to you and allow you to introduce yourself in a little more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great to be here. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for the invite. So I'm Andrei. I'm one of the founders of Dexory. I am the CEO. I have a technical background, so my background is in robotics, robotics and electronics. Spent some time working in motorsport at the beginning of my career. A big love for engineering, for race cars. I worked in Formula One, which is kind of like the pinnacle of motor racing, but also very heavily focuses on full stack business concepts, and we're gonna definitely talk a little bit more about that. Then I went to spend a bit of time working in automotive, and went really back to my original passion and true love, which was building robots, but not just building robots as kind of research, but building products that sit at the intersection of autonomous robots, data intelligence, and kind of bringing that to the wider industry.
Okay. All right. I'm excited to have you on. Where are you calling in from today?
So we're currently based as a central HQ just outside Oxford in the British countryside, so in the UK. And that's pretty much where we design, engineer, test, manufacture the robots, and where the company's basically expanding from.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Good to have you on today then. I'm kind of curious, looking through your profile on LinkedIn, you as you alluded to a while, you have an interesting way of how you arrived here into kind of the warehouse and supply chain sector. Could you kind of talk us through a little bit more of the detail in your career here? So maybe what inspired you to go and study engineering in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So this is gonna sound a bit cheesy, but this is the reality. I think I've been an engineer since as long as I can remember, since as far back as I know. I've always loved technical things. I've always been attracted to kind of like techie geeky stuff. That's kind of how all my passion and most, if not all my free time was directed to science, to engineering, really.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, I've had this attraction throughout my entire life. So I really cared deeply about how can you use this technology to create products as well. So it wasn't just, I would say I'm not a researcher or scientist per se. I would say I'm an engineer at heart. So I want to see the things working well, and really kind of improving our lives. Technology is there to enable us to live better lives, to kind of make the society better. So I had this crazy idea of using autonomous robots to collect information from offline spaces. I'll tell you a little bit more about where I got the idea first and foremost, but I had this idea and it evolved a little bit over time. And then I've convinced my co-founders, Juan and Adrian, that this is a good idea to make a business from. And that's what got us here. But if you take another step back, I would say, you look at my personal background. So I used to work in Formula One. I was trackside with the team with Force India, which is now Aston Martin, and we were traveling. We were pretty much traveling around the world, and F1 is actually it's a big logistics operation. So if you think about it, you have to transport those cars, all the equipment, all the garages from one racetrack to another, and nothing can miss. It's a pretty big problem if half of your car has been forgotten in in a warehouse in a previous race, right? So and we had issues. We had challenges in getting every single part of that shipment in time, and we were working with various transport and logistics providers. And I said, look, this is genuinely the cutting edge of engineering. It's Formula One. These are some of the most advanced cars in the world. Why aren't other industries leveraging these components and sort of like leveraging the data insight, leveraging better data capturing, better visibility across their operations? So that kind of thought stuck with me for quite some time, and it
Yeah.
definitely shaped the way we looked at bringing the product into the world.
So a little bit of inspiration from and it's funny, you must be kind of proud, or is there anything that you saw in the new F1 movie, I guess it's kind of really out there, that seems incredibly accurate or inaccurate, or like how do you feel about that as a portrayal of, I guess, the F1 industry behind the scenes?
I actually really loved the movie, and their polarized views, right,
Uh-huh.
on the film. I think it's a movie, right?
Hmm.
It's not a documentary, but I think they really captured the essence of what goes on behind the scenes. Obviously, it's dramatized and exaggerated to some extent, but some of the politics and some of the intensity, and most importantly, I think the sacrifice that people make to get to work in F1 and to also win in F1, because
Hmm.
we have to remember motorsport is a sport. It's an incredibly complex sport. It's a team sport. The thing that attracted me to it, going back to the fact that I'm an engineer at heart, I'm also very competitive, and I love this concept of being able to compete in a complex environment where you still have to have the entire team coming together, and that team might be 1,000 people or 300 people. It's not just the team that travels at the track; it's the entire factory, everything and every function that supports there. So I think the movie really captures it well, and of course the battles are insane, and we've seen it. It's clearly inspired from some of the recent events that we've had just a few seasons ago, which was decided in the last laps of the last race. So
So you still follow the sport pretty closely, I assume then.
I do, and I have some of my best friends are in the sport, and it's changing and evolving, but I think it's definitely on a better trajectory in the last years. Again, a very polarized view because some people love it, some people hate it in the new format.
Hmm.
I think at the end of the day, a sport needs to have a strong element of entertainment. It needs to have viewers. It needs to have sort of like fans. Otherwise, it's going to become a dying sport because no one watches it. But the element I don't like so much about F1 is I think it's very important not to lose focus of the core engineering and to get distracted by pure marketing or cost caps or anything like that. Not saying these are not important, and it's important to enable everyone to compete, but it's motorsport, it's not marketing sport. So I think it's a really important point, like we still need to enable these things to be the cutting edge, the most advanced vehicles and
Hmm.
technologies in the world.
Curious, kind of going through the career aspects of your story. What advice might you give to yourself, kind of knowing and seeing what you're doing today? Would you have kind of made the similar decisions that you've made, and kind of accumulated that experience to get to where you are now with Dexory? Or what advice might you give yourself a few years ago?
I'll be very, very honest. I mean, building a full stack business, it's incredibly hard. Nobody can say otherwise. Building a full stack business in robotics is even harder than that. Um, I think I've always been a very resilient and very determined person. And I think if I would go back to myself, probably not 10, 15 years ago, but maybe 20, 25 years ago when I was sort of like high school and finishing and going into uni, I would say my advice would be to push myself harder.
Hmm.
I feel I was not pushing myself hard enough back then. I think there was this tipping point as I moved to the UK, and I really sort of like set my sights on working in F1. I really realized that I have to be incredibly resilient and incredibly and relentlessly follow this passion, this pursuit. And it never gets any easier. You just have to stick to what you've set out to achieve.
Hmm. It sounds to me like maybe you might subscribe to the concept of that you've got to fail. And if you're not failing enough, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Any sort of thoughts on that topic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if you're going to be risk averse, and if you're going to be afraid of failure, you're gonna never be able to build something that is a generational company, or you're never going to be able to push yourself outside that comfort zone.
Hmm.
I think failure is a normal part of life. I don't think you have to fail, on the whole, but you have to be able to push the limits and push the boundaries, and you have to be able to be prepared to fail. You have to be able to be prepared to give it everything you got. I mean, when you look at building a company and building a business, the only reality you have in business is failure. If you do nothing with your company, if you do not keep pushing and finding ways to grow, you will fail eventually. It doesn't matter what size of company you are. It could be a listed company. If you are not progressing, if you're not growing, your share price is going to keep decreasing. You could be a small company that is 5 people and it's just a consultancy. You have to keep getting new customers because realistically, everything around you becomes more expensive. If you're a VC funded business, is exactly the same thing. If you do not grow, actually quite aggressively, 3, 4, 5x year on year, it's going to be harder and harder to raise this financing rounds. So, I think for business, that is unfortunately the reality. You have to be prepared to give it everything you got, and you should not be afraid of failure. You should treat failure as the unique opportunity to learn,
Hmm.
to adapt, and to evolve, and to find ways of improving.
Yep. Yep. Excellent. Let's maybe turn the conversation a little bit to the early days of Dexory then. And I feel like maybe in the early days it wasn't even called Dexory. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a history lesson here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the company was called Bots and Us. What's really interesting is that we started as a business over 10 years ago. However, the vision has remained unchanged. So we had this belief that we can use autonomous robots to collect data from offline environments, from physical spaces, and present this data to businesses in a way that enables them to run more efficiently.
Hmm.
So we started with much smaller, much smaller robots designed for human robot interaction. And they were designed around to go around in airports, in shopping malls, in hotel lounges, interact with people, be able to provide, gather feedback from them, provide information, and then be able to actually show this feedback on a digital map. So it enabled those spaces to actually perform better and perfect the customer experience.
Hmm.
We then had we had a transition to retail, where we were using the robots to collect information, collect data from retail, to help with planogram analysis, to help on the operational side. That was the first step we made to the operational side, and this was around 2019. And then we had the pandemic, as we all know.
Hmm.
Obviously, during the pandemic, retail was not the industry looking to deploy more technology in stores
Yeah.
because people were not really going in stores. However, on the logistics side, companies really started to have huge opportunities, a lot of opportunities for growth because a lot of businesses moved online, and supply chain and logistics really sort of like stepped in this central position where it became obvious just what a critical role the industry plays in how we live our lives today as a species. And for us, it was also a great opportunity because we had a lot of people coming to us saying, hey, could you use these robots? Could you use this technology? Could you use this product originally developed for retail to actually collect data from warehouses? As you can imagine, warehouses are 10, 20, 30, 50 times bigger than retail stores. So it wasn't exactly a trivial problem to solve. But we were also big believers in the impact that this technology and the visibility it can drive, the real-time data we can achieve, and we can collect and reproduce for customers would really transform the industry. So we jumped at the opportunity. We decided to do a hard pivot, move the technology, transform that product and technology stack into something that is dedicated and created specifically for logistics. And we launched this product as you see it now. We rebranded the company into Dexory,
Mm-hmm.
launched the product as you see now, Dexory View, which is a global intelligence and visibility platform, a digital twin platform, powered or fueled by data collected by our autonomous robots. We only launched it less than 3 years ago. And it was a really good adoption in the market. So we have already deployed across America, across Europe, and we're expanding in new territories like Australia and the Middle East and so on. So I would say that the industry was very receptive to the value proposition, not so much to the robots or to the digital twin alone, but to this full stack element, full stack concept of using autonomous robots to collect data and then processing that to give the users actual insights into how they can run the business better.
I've enjoyed watching you all grow since just a few years ago when I saw the first units at some trade shows here in the U.S. I'm kind of curious, how the growth, like what the strategy has been. Like what market did you start first, and what were your ideal customers, I guess, in the early days, and what's your ideal customer today?
So the growth strategy, I think one of the one of the important points we focused on was kind of looping back to what we were just discussing is not being afraid to fail fast and not being afraid to iterate and work closely with customers. So we didn't start by saying, oh, we have this robot, it's 2.5 meters tall, it can go around your warehouse and collect some data from the first shelf. We started using that as a technology demo to really open the conversation and understand what customers really wanted, to understand kind of what drives value for them, and how can this product be turned, technology be turned into a product? How can this product actually bring value? So we started with the concept of exactly how I introduced it, a global visibility platform. So we said, look, these robots need to be able to operate in any warehouse environment. We restricted because we wanted to create focus. So we restricted ourselves to operating in indoor warehouses. But then we said, okay, it needs to be very easy to deploy. The customers are saying, look, this is a live logistics environment. It's a warehouse. We need to be able to operate, to move swiftly in the space. We do not have the luxury of retrofitting or changing the infrastructure. We need to have something that we can quickly start using. So what we took from that is it needs to seamlessly integrate with the environment. It needs to, the product per se needs to be very easy to use. So it needs to be intuitive. And the installation and deployment, the time to value from the first moment we put the product, the technology in there to the point where the customers can see the first results needs to be very short. It's an industry that moves fast. We all want to have same day delivery. It's exactly the same thing. People want to see same day results, right? Those were some of the golden early nuggets that we really took to heart, and we said, okay, we need to create this technology at a level of sophistication that brings people value and benefit, and we will not settle and we will not stop until we can create the best possible version of this. However, I would say that another important part of this is the fact that we are the only company in the world with this technology. And on one hand, I'm incredibly proud to say that. But on the other hand, when it's something so new, unique, and innovative, it's really difficult. It's really hard to find examples of how people solve the problems. So actually, we had to solve a lot of challenges and problems, and the product had to keep evolving to reach that level and to reach that level of performance. And because we are a VC-funded business, we also had to make sure we balance this with that very, very rapid growth that we were just discussing.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't shy away from a hard challenge, I would say. But those were some of the key points.
I'm curious, you mentioned a while ago in the early times when it was 2.5 meters high, I suppose, and you said specifically, can scan the first level. I'm kind of curious, like at what point did first level and 2.5 meters turn into 10 meters and scanning, like what kind of drove that iteration?
So that's a good point, and it also feeds into the previous question about the ideal customer. So we started with the first iteration of our product because it's something that we had clearly not designed for warehouses, and I would say probably in the first 3, 4 visits we realized that this is not going to be the product that transforms the industry because we used it for a lot of discovery and people got very excited to see the data, to see the information, but also said, yeah, we have 7 levels of warehouse racks here. So the first one, the first two are fine, but you're only solving 20% of the problem. So it's really important to understand also that some problems are hard. Definitely some problems are a lot harder to solve than others, but if you really care about it, you care deeply about the subject, you will find a way to make it work. And again, so like listening to customers, we understood that they want the speed, they want the the detail in the data, but they also need to have that information quickly. So you have to have a technology that can can scan the spaces incredibly quickly. We're talking well over 10,000 pallets an hour that we can do currently with the latest technology. It goes much, much higher. So we can easily do 14 meters. So we do pretty much the broad market coverage. And you have to find a way to adapt to the customer needs without becoming an infinite consultancy. So the product needs to be robust and expandable enough that you can add features as the market matures and as we're learning alongside our customers. So I would say very early on, we realized that that first level was never going to be enough. But it took a little bit more, it took a few more iterations and it took quite a bit more engineering to go from 2 meters to 14.
One of the things that I, have noticed is that there's a lot of folks out there kind of trying to solve this problem and kind of deliver the same results with flying, robots. And I think you all were kind of unique in that you were kind of this land-based solution. And I don't want to kind of like pick favorites here or whatnot, but I really have enjoyed seeing y'all's approach. There's from batteries and flight time and all that sort of good stuff. It's just the unique look of it, right? So I've been kind of cheering you all on. But can you kind of just talk about how your kind of approach to solving the problem differentiates from the flying in the air approach?
So that's a very interesting question because we started later in this industry. I would say there were some people in the market looking to solve this problem with drones and flying these things indoors. I think the essential bit there is that they missed the point around the customer need, which is being able to scan incredibly quickly, being able to have this zero disruption to normal operations, and it is nothing to do with the technology or the product that other companies have put into the market. You can have the best possible drone in the world. It will never be able to compete in terms of the speed of scanning or in terms of the information that you can gather with our product. Because we are a ground based, but because with the extended tower, you can scan the entire rack in one pass. It means that we can get a lot more information a lot faster, and we're really not limited in terms of runtime. So we have, like I said, in terms of scanning capacity, well over 10,000 pallets an hour. And a lot of it revolves fundamentally around the form factor that we chose. The other side of it is, in a warehouse, you have a lot of forklifts. They put things at height, they move boxes, they move pallets. It's fine. These are environments where heavy machinery is a normal thing.
Yeah.
A robot like this, you would definitely not be able to put in a retail store. It also probably would not fit very easily. So I think the important bit is what is the form factor fit for purpose here?
Mhm.
What is, like if you were to create a technology, how does it work best in those environments? And what do customers want? We have a lot of customers that come to us and say, look, I've lost a lot of pallets because there are user errors or there was a system outage and they were scanned, but they weren't properly sent to the mainframe computer. We need to find them, and we need to find them in the next 10 hours, 12 hours, in the next 2 or 3 days. Unless you have something that's going to scan, 1 million square feet in a day, you are going to struggle. And a lot of the time, they could be perishable goods. They could be goods that need to feed the production line. This, like I said, speed to value, time to value is
Yeah.
incredibly important in how the product serves the customers.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the evolution of just the richness of data. I feel like maybe things started out with just, is this product here? Yes or no? Like very kind of analog. And then now you're kind of like at this point of being able to see like, through things and count multiple pallets deep, and like the digital twin concept. Like, can you kind of talk through how that, the richness, I think, of the insights has evolved?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I can definitely talk through that, and it's something it's also important, and it's also key to the way we work with our customers. So, if we go back to your previous question around what's the key customer, we work with anyone that has a warehouse, and that is pretty much how we defined the customer persona. It needs to be an indoor space, so we don't operate outdoors. Um, but from a perspective of the data and what we can retrieve, so obviously we started with simpler things, scanning barcodes, and also digital twin reconstruction was part of the initial product offering. But what we were doing with that is being able to identify empty locations, being able to reconcile the data, make sure that what other systems in the warehouse believe is true, it's actually the ground-based reality. As we progressed into the market and as more and more customers got very excited about this technology, we then went into more advanced features like double deep pallet locations, pick face analysis, where we can actually count the number of boxes, the number of products you have in the locations. But also we deliberately wanted to operate with any customer that has a warehouse, which means we do not operate only in racking based warehouses, whether they're normal racks or very narrow aisles, VNAs. We operate also in block stack, so warehouses where you have a completely different way of storing the goods, and we can have exactly the same type of digital twin reconstruction, the same detailed analysis where we can tell you at any single point in time what is the quantity of the goods and where are these goods and what conditions are they stored in, pretty much in any locations in any warehouse in the world from anywhere you are in the world with access to Dexory View, to the intelligence platform. So it's evolved, and I would say it will never stop evolving because the data sets that we have over 750 million pallet locations scanned. It's definitely the biggest and most comprehensive data set in the entire logistics industry, both in racks and outside of racks. But this data is incredibly valuable to enable us to train our artificial intelligence systems, to be able to train the next generation models, and to be able to extract more insights, to be able to create a new way of optimization and optimizing the operations, a new way of seamlessly running these environments and these warehouses for the future.
I'm curious, having been a warehouse operator myself, there's, companies pay a lot of money for WMSs and all the systems that have already been invested in to keep track of where things are. And they invest a lot of money in training their teams and all these sort of systems and processes to make sure that the very fundamental concept of keeping track of things in a warehouse is done at a very high level of quality. So, like, it would seem to me like people are going to really think twice about, do we need another layer? On top of that, we should trust our folks out there on the floor. We've got these WMSs. But it clearly, with y'all's success in coming into the market, there's gaps and there's opportunities that even the best WMSs and the best trained teams and operations are not 100%.
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree more. Um, so, I mean, if everything was perfect, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation,
Right.
clearly.
That's, yeah.
But we don't live in a perfect world. And like I said, people make mistakes. The data that you get through the systems is incomplete. It can be very segmented. You can have warehouses where there's 5 customers and there's 5 WMS systems plus another one on top, which belongs to the warehouse per se. Very, very difficult to have that single source of truth. But most importantly, because we thought exactly the same thing. So when
Mm-hmm.
we started looking at the logistics market, we said, there's clearly software in this market. So what
Yeah.
we can do is collect some data, process it to some extent, and then send it to other systems so they can leverage that and use the information. However, what we found is that there is no other system in the world designed like this. And I mean, there's a very good reason for that because there aren't other autonomous robots going around collecting LiDAR, 3D cloud point data, and taking pictures in every location. Along with the logical data you were saying, is this correct? Is it here? Is it not here? And then creating this unified data set. So why would you build something for something that didn't exist before? Of course. And this is also what there was one of our, I would say, light bulb moments is, people don't really want a robot in the warehouse. They want that intelligent system. They want they really want the data insights.
Mm-hmm.
You can make an argument that it's not even the data per se, because there's so much information. It's impossible for anyone to actually go and click through 100,000 images that you collect in a day.
Yeah.
So the way we started working and the way we work currently with existing systems is in this great symbiosis where we can pull information from additional systems, we can push information to other systems, so it creates a more intelligence ecosystem for the wider industry. So that I would say that's kind of how we look at it in a nutshell. And then the flip side of that is also the industry is facing a massive labor shortage, and it's actually really difficult to collect a lot of this data. I think we are confident to say at this point in time we have the ability with all the analysis and all the systems we have to create a unified data set that it would be impossible for anyone to go and achieve by hand. You would have to have 3D digital scanners, ways of collecting images, ways of actually moving all that data to a central location. It would just never be feasible. So those are some of the unique advantages, and also those are some of the ways in which we can exchange and cohabitate with additional systems in the space.
Oh. I feel like a great way to kind of wrap and put a bow on this kind of conversation here is could you share a case study, of kind of a before and after you all engaged with a customer and kind of share that story?
I think I have a couple I could think of. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I don't kind of give away any customer specifics, but
Sure.
we have a number of different industries that we operate in. I think we were talking about probably a leading 3PL from North America. They were spending a lot of time on manual inventory, a lot of time on spot checking because it's really important to make sure that you try as much to prevent rather than fix the errors as they happen. The value proposition that we brought to them said, look, instead of having to do wall to walls, instead of having to kind of disrupt the operations so dramatically, we can offer Dexory View, we can bring this technology, we can give you end-to-end visibility over the entire warehouse. We can give you a data set that tells you where the products are. You can search for any product in the warehouse, which means an immediate increase in productivity for the existing operators, not necessarily the stock take or inventory team, but anyone operating in the environment because the information is up to date, and an increasing capability of offering transparency to customers. So you can actually give your customers peace of mind. You can show them the state of which you're storing the goods, the way you're looking after their goods,
Mm-hmm.
and that will massively increase the customer satisfaction scores. So when you look at it, basically we cut down escalation handling time from something that was just over 3 hours to below 15 minutes. Giving this visibility layer, instant access to everything, all the parts of the operation in the warehouse. We've located stock, so pallets worth of in excess of $200,000 in the first between 3 and 4 weeks, so 3.5 weeks of operating in that warehouse. And I think there's also a big strategic outcome, because the automation bit really strengthened the team's belief in data accuracy and enabled them to focus on the high value tasks. And I think that's often harder to quantify, but it's a real compounding value driver for a lot of the automation. So, people, instead of getting frustrated and not being able to find the right pallets in the warehouse, be able to serve customers, they could really accomplish a lot more within the same amount of time or less. So this solidifies their position as one of the innovative logistics leaders in the market.
Yeah. Excellent. I like it. It feels like it's whenever a big topic at a lot of shows and a lot of panels is where are you at on your adoption of automation and robotics in operation? And it feels like you all represent one of those kind of like pretty easy to switch on opportunities that can lead to more, but it's a good stepping stone toward more intelligence in an operation.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how we look at it. We look at the intelligence layer as the Dexory view as digital infrastructure for the future, because it's clear that we are moving into a direction where you want to leverage more AI, you want to leverage more automation. You have a workforce that can benefit from being supercharged by these technologies. Exactly like we use AI in our day-to-day lives, it helps us do so much more and cover so much more ground. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same approach for starting to layer in automation at different levels in an organization, and being able to create this digital foundation is absolutely essential for anything and everything you want to deploy, you want to layer on top of it, whether there's more autonomous robots to be able to move goods faster, whether there's more intelligent optimization so people can actually achieve a lot more, so their productivity is much higher and their workload is actually lighter, so they can do a lot more with less, basically, in the same amount of time, for example.
Yeah. Excellent. As we wrap things up here today, any kind of final words or thoughts you would like to leave the listeners with?
If you're really passionate about an idea, or you're really passionate about a product, and have a vision of how this will transform the world or transform an industry or change the way people do things and go about their lives, I think you just have to be relentless and keep pursuing that vision, that dream. It never gets any easier. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, it will get a lot easier after 5 years. But I think you definitely get more resilient. And there isn't really a bigger satisfaction than seeing this unique concept you had in mind and seeing it in customers' hands and seeing how much value it brings to them. So stay true to those beliefs and keep pushing to bring these incredible products into the world.
Awesome, awesome, and congratulations on being one of those folks that's bringing something really awesome and impactful into the industry. I'll see you around at a show or a conference here pretty soon, probably. Take care.
It will be an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.